The Indian IT industry is a brand in itself that majorly encompasses the IT services and business process outsourcing. Indian IT industry, the behemoth, has grown leaps and bounds over the past years. But due to the weathered uncertainties in the global business, the industry is going through turbulent times, and they should make an effort to turn the tide to their advantage. The purview of Indian IT is limited to services. In the Indian IT sector, revenues generated by product development are not more than 5% of the total for any of the firms. The Indian IT is replete with resourceful manpower, but the need of the day is to channel them towards innovation. Keeping this in mind, I would like to introduce the topic for our next panel discussion, Indian IT, Enabler to Explorer, in search of a sustenance model.
To guide and channelize the discussion, I would like to call upon the moderator, Dr. R. Venkateshwaran, Senior Vice President and Chief Technology Officer, Persistent Systems. I request Sir to join us on the dais. As the CTO of Persistent Systems, Sir is responsible for the technology roadmap of the company, covering high-end technology consulting business, innovation, learning, and competency development and IP-related investments. He joined Persistent Systems in 2002 and has undertaken various roles over the years, including that of Head of Telecom Business and Strategic Initiatives around BI Analytics, Cloud Computing, Enterprise Collaboration, and Mobility and Embedded Systems. Prior to Persistent, he worked for 7 years as a researcher at Bell Laboratories and also at the CTO office at Lucent Technologies. He earned his BTech and MTech degrees in computer science from IIT Bombay and has a PhD in computer science from Washington State University. He holds multiple patents in the area of ATM multicasting and has authored numerous research papers that have been published in reputed journals and conferences. We welcome you, sir, to Communicate Well.
For our next panelist, I call upon Mr. Denny Petitjean, Senior Vice President, Global Strategic Sourcing, Amdocs India, and a member of Amdocs India Senior Leadership Team. Sir has over 30 years of experience in IT and telecommunications industry in structuring and developing consulting and systems integration businesses in a wide range of sectors and industries. Prior to this, Sir was heading Alcatel-Lucent services in India, where he was responsible for system integration and managed services, as well as hosting a number of global competency centers supporting Alcatel-Lucent worldwide service business. Denny spent around 15 years with Alcatel-Lucent, where he held multiple senior business management responsibilities in APAC, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and CALA, in various domains encompassing switching, intelligent network, value-added services, and OSS-BSS integration for fixed and mobile network. With a degree in computer science from the National Institute of Applied Sciences in France, Sir started his career in 1981 in the IT industry with digital equipment. Mr. Petitjean is a seasoned executive, bringing with him a combined IT and telecommunications background with a successful experience of running complex product and solutions businesses, accustomed to deal with cultural differences and with strong business acumen and innovation drive. We welcome you, sir, to Communicate 12.
I now call upon our next esteemed panelist, Mr. Purushottam Darshankar, Solution Head, Mobility, Wipro. Sir has more than 15 years of IT experience, having worked with large enterprise projects across the industry with specialization in enterprise mobility consulting. He has a rich experience in implementing and supporting mobility solutions for enterprises in finance, healthcare, telecom, and utilities and manufacturing industry that includes productivity solution for field force, mobile commerce, and mobile CRM solution. He completed his master's in engineering from Government College of Engineering, Pune. He has been active member of Indian Society of Technical Education and member of Mobile Payment Forum of India. We welcome you, sir, to SITM.
Next, I would like to call upon Mr. Fakhruddin Mandukwala, Head Global IT Delivery, Tata Communications. Sir is a qualified CA and CISA with over 20 years' experience, having worked in diverse industry sectors ranging from petrochemicals to software industry to telecommunications. He has worked in various roles in finance, has set up and led business units in BSS domains, conceptualized and created software products, and performed consultancy on OSS BSS roadmap to several telecom operators across the globe. We welcome you, sir, to Communicate 12.
Our next distinguished panelist is Mr. Nagendra Dandamudi, Director, AT&T. Sir has been heading service delivery for AT&T, managing services arm in Asia Pacific for 2 years now. He's held pivotal roles in transformation of network management and delivery in leading service providers for over 25 years. Sir brings along with him rich experience in telecom and service management and deep understanding of network engineering and operations. We welcome you, sir, to SITM.
Next, I would like to call upon Mr. R.V. Narsimham, AVP and Head of Communications, Cognizant Europe. Sir has over 17 years of business leadership, global delivery, and technology consulting experience in the IT outsourcing industry. He has worked in US, UK, and India with global IT companies like Keen, Deloitte, Wipro, and Cognizant, and served several Fortune 500 clients in manufacturing, retail, and telecom industries. Sir, SITM welcomes you to Communicate 12.
Now, I would like to call upon Mr. K.S. Gill, Chief Executive Officer, Airsoft. Sir has over 30 years of experience in multiple high technology sectors as both an entrepreneur and as an executive, and has introduced several first-time computer and telecom products and services. In 2005, he spotted the business need and impact of automating and simplifying the telecom expense management lifecycle, and therefore founded Airsoft. Airsoft helps customers dramatically reduce their telecom expenses to improve their bottom line and gain control of a complicated and moving expenditure. Airsoft is now a fast-growing company, fully funded by internal accruals. Sir has received a degree with honors in economics from Government College, Punjab University. Sir, we welcome you to Communicate 12.
Our next esteemed panelist is Mr. Prashant Bopardekar, GBS Service Delivery, IBM. Sir has over 17 years of professional experience in mature and growth markets, with over 11 years in the telecom sector. Mr. Bopardekar is currently IBM leader for transformation, applications development, and maintenance as part of the Vodafone India strategic outsourcing engagement. We welcome you, sir, to SITM.
Our next panelist is Mr. Malesha, Senior Principal, Business Consulting, Infosys Consulting. Sir brings in more than 13 years of professional experience in strategy and planning, business consulting, and leading transformational programs for various Global 500 companies such as Microsoft, Infineon Semiconductors, Atlas Copco, Cummins, and Compaq. Within Infosys Management Consulting Services in India, he heads 4 practices: government, infrastructure, retail, and strategy. Sir is also part of the India Management Council, a leadership team responsible for driving BU growth at Infosys. Prior to Infosys, he led corporate planning team at Suzlon Energy in Pune. Mr. Shah plays a leadership role with CII Pune and is also a guest faculty at Symbiosis Institute of Business Management. He holds an MBA degree in finance and Bachelor of Science degree in chemical engineering. Sir, we welcome you to Communicate 12.
I now have the pleasure of calling upon Professor Indranil Bose, Senior Faculty, IIM Calcutta. Sir is currently a full professor and coordinator of management information systems with IIM Calcutta. In the past, Sir has held the position of assistant professor for information systems at the University in Hong Kong, the University of Florida, and the University of Texas. Amongst his numerous honors and awards, Sir has held the position of the honorary chair at the International Conference on Electronics Engineering and Signal Processing in Maldives in May 2011, and has delivered a keynote address on the topic Customer-Centric Decision Sciences from Analysis to Analytics at the 3rd International Conference on Global Interdependence and Decision Science at Hyderabad in December 2009. Professor Bose completed his PhD in management, majoring in Management Information System, from the Purdue University in 1997. He holds dual master's degree in industrial engineering and in electrical and computer engineering from the Purdue University and the University of Iowa, respectively. He earned his bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, in 1991. Sir, SITM welcomes you to Communicate 12.
I would now request our chairperson for the panel discussion, Mr. R. Venkateshwaran, to kindly initiate the discussion.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I know it's we're starting this panel discussion right after lunch, so it's a little bit going to be tricky to keep everyone awake. So what we'll do is, and also, since we're running a little behind schedule, and we have some panel members who have to leave to catch their flights, what I'll try to do is keep this panel fairly focused on specific topics and keep it very, very tight on the schedule part. So just to set the context, the key topic that we're trying to debate here is, has the IT industry reached a plateau in terms of growth? And that's the challenge or topic that we want to discuss here. So, and the reasons for this could be manifold. It could be because we are over-dependent on global markets. We may not have the right talent to service business, so that's why the growth is a little bit stunted. We may not have explored all kinds of we are dependent on a linear model, where the revenues are dependent on people as opposed to non-linear models. We may not have been, leveraging a whole lot of innovation in terms of our processes, in terms of our IP, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the, topics that we would like to cover during this 45-minute session that we have. What I request each panel member is that, please keep your initial thoughts to about 2 to 3 minutes, and then we go around the table once to hear your initial thoughts. And based on what we hear, we can go deeper into one or two of those topics, and then open the floor for question answers. The whole idea is to keep the session interactive as opposed to a whole lot of monologue from our side. So in the interest of time, let me quickly get started with Indranil. You may want to just get the whole thing started, and look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Is it on? Good afternoon, everyone. I think it is a very interesting panel discussion session that we have today. And as some of my first thoughts about what lies ahead for the Indian IT business, I would like to say that having been abroad for a very long time, first in the US for about a decade, and then in the Far East in Hong Kong for another decade, we have always had heard a lot about what was happening in the Indian IT industry, and now I'm sitting in a panel with all my distinguished colleagues from the IT industry. What I see is, there has been a lot of transformation in the Indian IT industry. But the future probably lies, in my humble opinion, in the innovation that Indian IT industry can actually contribute. If you recall, the IT industry basically started as a service provider, and it was particularly the Y2K that really got in a lot of boom for the Indian IT industry. But a lot has happened ever since. And one of the things that I would like to emphasize where innovation and IT industry can really work together is the area of green business. I come from a background of telecommunication and business intelligence data mining. But even with that, I feel that green is an area that Indian IT can really contribute quite a bit. And if we are talking about sustenance, I think this is one really compelling area that you cannot ignore. I'll just read out one line from an article that was published in Harvard Business Review. And the authors are very well known, Professor Nidhimalu, Professor C.K. Prahlad, which I think all of you have heard about him, and Professor Rangaswamy. And they say that in the future, only companies that make sustainability a goal can achieve competitive advantage. That's a pretty strong statement. That means rethinking business models as well as products, technologies, and processes. There are various reasons why companies need to go green. Customers are demanding it, regulation is coming, also competition is doing it. So if you don't do it, someone else will certainly do it, and they'll take the market away. Green is necessary for growth and also for sustenance. I'll also say that people were curious whether green movement will actually be, last long when the financial crisis came. And Forrester Research did a survey on that, and they said that about 60% of the companies said that their green efforts have either increased or remained the same even after the financial crisis. That tells you a lot. And I think Indian IT industry need to look at this as an opportunity for innovation, as an opportunity for growth, and take this green mantra forward by coming up with various kinds of solutions like carbon accounting tools, like carbon exchanges, like carbon footprint measuring devices, and whatnot. I think I just leave it to the imagination of the Indian IT companies to think about what lies ahead. I currently teach a course on green business environment at IIM Calcutta, and when I first proposed this course after joining IIM Calcutta earlier this year, I was told that this is a finance campus and no one would be interested in green. But when this course was offered, I think there was a huge number of registrations, and after the course, I think students have come and told me that many of them would prefer to go for a green career over a finance career, which I think was quite an achievement for the course itself. And I also saw a lot of excitement in the eyes of the students, and I also must tell you that none of the students slept during the classes, although the time was not very convenient for the class. And they participated quite a bit in the case discussions, interaction sessions, and whatnot. So I do see green as one area which could bring in a lot of growth, which could bring in a lot of pride, and which could bring in a lot of importance for the Indian IT industry. And I would request my colleagues to share their thoughts on it when they get an opportunity on it. Thank you.
Purushottam, you want to go next?
Good afternoon, team. So I'll make it crisp. So there are 4 points which I would want to touch upon. Traditionally, we have been winning the deals which are predominantly like BPO deal, infrastructure deal, application maintenance and service. So we need a paradigm shift where we need to engage customer differently, and that is where the solution-centric approach is very important. So you need to have the problem-solving approach where we can address the pain areas the customer is facing. So it's not a traditional technology services. You need to build certain solution and then you need to approach the customer. So while you take this particular approach, you need to build a strong relationship with the customer because you would be also experimenting a lot of things along with the customer. And traditionally what we have seen is that we have very good connects on the IT side because most of the deals are coming from that, right? We have good connects with CIO and all those things. We also need to have the good connects with the businesses because the main budget comes from the businesses. So I think that would help us take this solution to the customer. So that is the first thing. Second thing which I would want to touch upon is the new technologies which are there. These are all disruptive technologies. We talk about mobility, we talk about cloud, we talk about analytics, social media and all those things. So I think this we can leverage this technology to bring some disruption, and I think this disruption or the new ideas that we come up with I think they will take out the cost for the customer, and anybody, and the customer would be interested if their cost is taken out. I think they would certainly want to engage the Indian IT company. So that is the second thing which I would want to touch upon. Third, I think panel will talk a lot about that, and I think you will hear again the new business models and then innovation, right? So the focus has to be on building the IPs, right? So you can build this IP, you can take it to the customer. Once you are successful with one customer, you can replicate that particular success to other customers. And that is where you will get the nonlinear growth. And again, there are new models which are coming like co-create or co-innovation, where you need not be ready with your IP. You can jointly work with a customer, address their pain areas, and whatever IP that you build or whatever investment that you build in building those IPs, you can then probably take it to the other customers. And again, I talked about the new technologies. So whatever services offerings that you have, if you package it as a product, so productizing the service is very important. And you don't take it to the customer as a service. You make it host onto a cloud, or you can take some different ways of taking this productized services to the customer. And then you can come up with a lot of business model, right? It could be transaction-based model, license-based model, or pay-as-you-go, or a utility model. So these are the important things that you can bring in order to generate the top line. And last is on the expanding the geo presence. So we have a lot of emerging market like Brazil, Middle East, China, where IT industries have already started investing in. And one important factor which I would want to highlight here is that you just don't enter the market. You try to hire the local talent. And again, the senior executive or the leadership, which is there from the local market, and if they stand out and talk about your company, I think that will make a lot of difference. And the customer will appreciate that fact. I think these are the important things. And I think IT industry has realized this, and you must have seen a lot of buzz around the way different organizations are going through reorg. People are moving from here and there. So they are trying all those things, and I hope they would be able to sustain this growth. So I think with that hope, I want to conclude.
So we'll cover the services part, and then we'll go to the...
All right. So good afternoon, everyone. So you want the good news first or the bad news? All right. Now let's start with the good news, right? So the good news is now we are a $101 billion IT industry, I think, in terms of services and BPO. So I think we should make a note of that. So this is a milestone year. I don't know how true this is, but that's what NASSCOM says, right, on the website. So I haven't done any validation on that. So that's the good news. And the good news is, last 20 years has been a terrific time from a perspective of Indian IT and BPO in terms of the growth rates, right? And the other part of the good news is also that, over the last 10 years, last 10 to 12 years, there are at least 3 instances when we have predicted that the IT industry would sort of stagnate or doom of the IT industry and so on. One was during the Y2K days, right? And then the internet bust that happened in early 2000, and of course the financial crisis that took place in 2008. And the good news is, all the 3 times, the Indian IT industry has emerged stronger through this crisis, right? Through resilience, agility, adaptability, whatever be the means, they emerged a much stronger business. So that's the good news. Now the bad news is, right, and for people looking out for placements and so on, yes, the growth rate has slowed down. That's a fact. It's no more a 25% or a 30% or a 60% CAGR or year-on-year growth, right? We're talking about 5, 10, 15, 20, depending on the company that we're talking about here, right? So that's a bit of a challenge that the industry is going through. Industry is going through a lot of transition, a lot of structural shifts, and so on and so forth. In terms of, so what's the future looks like, right? How does the future look like? If you look at it from a perspective of the traditional services, the traditional IT BPO services, yes, there is a degree of saturation. We see a lot of commoditization that has happened, and it's very competitive out there, which is why you see a decline in the growth. The spend is going down, and so on and so forth. But there's a significant opportunity still for the Indian IT industry and the BPO industry or rather the IT services industry, to scale up in terms of the system integration services, the transformative services, right? And the way we are responding to that is in terms of embracing new business models, transaction-based business models, right? Outcome-based business models, and so on and so forth, right? So that's about the traditional services. If you look at, and in terms of the market share for traditional services, which is application development, application management, we are at about 60-70% in terms of the global sourcing market share. So that's a degree of saturation there. And we need to move up the value chain, right? In terms of the emerging services, if you look at infrastructure offerings or the business process outsourcing, a lot of innovation happening on that front. It's a highly underpenetrated market for the Indian IT and BPO. We're talking about 6 to 7% market share, which is quite insignificant, right? So there's a lot of headroom for growth there, and but it's not going to happen the way it has happened over the last 5 to 10 years. We need to kind of move towards platform-based BPO, right, which is more of productized services. We need to move towards a lot of automation, right? If you've heard of companies like IPsoft, which are actually creating platforms for the virtual engineers. You don't even need people to do the L1, L2, L3 kind of services anymore, right? So that's the kind of innovation that is going to drive the next phase of the market share gain in terms of infrastructure and the BPO offerings. And now the most exciting part is the shift from the client server, the internet, to the cloud era, right? The client server and the internet era was all about putting in systems in place to enable the operational processes, right? The ERP systems, the supply chain systems, the customer relationship systems, and so on and so forth. So that we sort of create systems which would actually enable automation and productivity and so on and so forth. And from that, we are moving to the cloud era. The last couple of years, some of you might believe that the transition has already happened. I believe it's still it's still happening, or we're transitioning to that mode. The nexus of these four forces, the social, mobility, cloud, big data, right? It's creating a huge shift in terms of the industry, the way the industries operate, right? And the kind of products and services that they're creating. And that's a big opportunity. That's a huge opportunity for the Indian IT industry. The revenues from that segment is just 5 to 8%, or maybe less than that, 3 to 5%, I would say, across the board. And that's the future. That's where the future lies, right? And it's happening very fast. It's happening faster than most of us believe or we think is happening. Yeah. So that's the opportunity. In terms of capabilities, I would just quickly reflect on, so what skills do we need? What capabilities do we need? When we are delivering the traditional services, right, over the last 20 years, we mastered project management. We mastered service management. India is a fantastic place, right, for project management and service management capabilities, and that's how we were able to successfully grow the business, right? In terms of scaling up and taking on transformational initiatives, we need to build our program management capabilities. Right, that's an area of serious gap in the industry today, and I don't have the time now to elaborate what that means, but it's a very niche domain. Program management is all about it's a strategic execution framework and so on and so forth. Coming to the third aspect, right, which is probably the most exciting aspect for all of you young people here in the room entering the industry, is the products domain. And on a scale of 1 to 10, probably in terms of product management, I don't know if the panel would agree with me, would be at about 3 or 3.5. And we're learning fast. Right, it all started with the outsourced product development in mid-2000. And then we have all these high-tech companies which set up shop in places like Bangalore, Pune, and we learned a lot about product development in the high-tech industry. And now we have the Google, Yahoo, and Amazon, having lots of people, right, in India who are gaining a lot of exposure to how to kind of drive innovation, drive product development, and so on and so forth. And I think that pool of resources is growing, and it will help us actually get into the product space in the very near future, right, in terms of successful launch of new products. Right? That's all I have to say.
I'll go next. This is Malaysia. Thanks, Narasimhan. I echo a lot of points which my colleague made here, that we have come a long way since the entire IT services industry took shape in India. But in many ways, I remember, a case study which I did during my B school, which was called 6 Years After the Meltdown. It was a classic IBM case study, which was between the period 93 to 99, where IBM was faced with very similar challenges that we are talking about right now, and how they really transitioned themselves from a product-based company to a services-based company. And really, if you really look at the times that IBM was facing in 93, the entire Microsoft operating system was taking much more dominant shape. The mainframe era was ending quite rapidly during that time frame. The internet was taking shape as well. So from that standpoint, there are a few parallels that you can draw right now, even for our industry, in terms of some of the technology trends which are underlying the market, such as mobility and cloud and social media, and some of those things which are catching up quite rapidly. There is emergence of new players in the market, which even some of the tier 1 companies hadn't anticipated earlier. So from that standpoint, the shifts are happening. Are some of the largest markets like US and Europe are also not growing as rapidly as we would like. So I think that is another macro environment that we are all facing. But I think our situation is slightly different. I think this is where the comparison ends, but I think our situation is quite different. If you really look at the Indian IT industry, I think services is what is the foundation on which the entire industry is built. And if you compare 2007 to 2012, tier one companies, Infosys, Cognizant, TCS, Wipro, and few others, have grown at a compounded annual aggregate growth rate of somewhere between 17 to 20%. If you look at Persistent Systems, if you look at KPIT Cummins, if you look at some of the companies like Hexaware, they've grown anywhere between 25 to 30%. So clearly the growth is there, and we are sitting on huge amount of talent. We are already a recognized player in the international market. We don't have to prove ourselves in the international market once again. We are also sitting on a lot of cash. Many of these companies are sitting on a lot of cash, which are healthy and which are quite profitable as well. And so those cash is available for all these companies to deploy to the new strategic shifts, which are happening in the market. So from that standpoint, I believe although we are in an inflection point, but we are much stronger to move forward at this inflection point. Now, let me talk about just 3 points in terms of what are the things which could happen from here on. Both from a strategy standpoint and from an operation standpoint. So from a strategy standpoint, clearly, if you replace, in any strategy reports of Infosys or Cognizant or TCS, if you replace the names, just do a copy paste and just replace the name, the strategy would pretty much read the same. Everyone is saying we want to get into the large transformation deals. We want to invest in, cloud, mobility and social media and analytics and big data. Everyone is saying we want growth, we want to go for growth, and we want to go for growth in large emerging markets. Everyone is saying we want to expand into products because that will give us non-linear revenues. So I think there is a fair amount of similarity across the board that you see across all these players. I think the key would be in terms of execution. Who is able to execute this faster? So for example, Infosys currently is the revenues which is coming from our traditional bread and butter ADM business is about 55%, whereas our revenues which are coming from product platform as solution is 9%. So the winner will be the one who is able to make a rapid shift from that 9% to something, at least 1/3. And our goal is to, at least drive 1/3 of the business out of product platforms and solutions. So that is number one. Number two, the cash is available. Now you can deploy this cash in terms of expanding into new market. You can deploy this cash into making acquisitions. Or you can even deploy this cash into really changing the whole business model around which the services are delivered. Services are traditionally delivered where clients are making an upfront investment in large IT systems. And in emerging markets like India, what we are seeing is clearly clients are more willing to pay for per transaction that they could collect from their customers rather than paying that kind of money. So in many ways, it will shift to a model of infrastructure companies where people collect tolls on the roads for over 20-25 period, but they are making upfront investment into building the entire road network, as an example. So I think that is another area where where that shift will happen. One last point I would like to make is I think the specialization is very important factor here. Because over the last years, we have obviously grown in multiplication and we have grown in numbers. Especially some of the large companies. But the ones who are winning in the market are the one who is having a very specialized focus. And I would give it to my, my colleagues. For example, Persistent is being represented here. They have focused, for example, on manufacturing. KPIT Cummins has focused on automotive. NIIT has focused on transportation, and that is clearly you can clearly see the difference in what is leading to the growth, because the large deals, are also getting broken down into smaller pieces, and ones who are playing a specialized role is getting more business and is getting more margin. So I think the last point I would like to make is, just what's in it for, you as a group to think about is, if once you are out in the market, if you are not a SME or if you don't have a deep domain knowledge or experience, and I think the great part is this is SITM, so telecom is clearly your domain, but if the domain is something which will really, help you sell in the marketplace. So with that, I'll conclude here and would hand it over to Dennis. Thank you.
So Dennis, just to keep the discussion more interesting, maybe we want to focus a little bit more on the innovation and IP piece. which
Yeah,
I think colleagues on the table
I
have
will,
not
because a lot has been said already, and so I'm not sure that I can add a lot to, and I concur to most and a large part of the point. So maybe I will cover, yes, intellectual property and specialization, because I believe this is one of the domain. So just to maybe give a slightly different perspective on how we see the market being in, and I will address it from the viewpoint of the telecommunication industry, and not the whole industry, not the whole verticals. So what we see happening today, and I will be humble because my experience is only 4 or 5 years in India, so you have much more experience with the Indian industry than I have. The point is that what I see right now is that somehow the Indian industry has been, Indian IT industry has been very successful, but still very much based on a manpower, a people-based model. And what we see happening is that there are today the cost differentiator cannot be a sustainable model for the future. It has to be different. You have other countries which are becoming most cost competitive than India, Indonesia, Vietnam, maybe Latin America. We see that the market as well is not looking anymore at a cost differentiation as the main value. If we look at what's happening in the telecommunication industry, for instance, in the telecommunication market, for the large CSP, the large communication service provider, I see them more and more moving into a relationship with their vendors, their suppliers, which is a partnership relationship. They don't want anymore to have something which is the same type of operation, the same type of activity for less, but they are looking at partners which are able to take part of their responsibility for their business. So in other words, it goes into revenue sharing, risk sharing type of approach, and the business model is changing, and therefore for the supplier, for the Indian IT industry, it means that bringing value is becoming more and more important, and we have touched base on that. Bringing value means certainly being able to work on innovation, certainly being able to differentiate by specialization and domain expertise. And this is where domain expertise, the point is very important, because certainly the ability for the Indian industry to move into product and combining product and services will give this domain expertise and this specialization. And so far, my perception, my humble view is that the Indian industry has not invested a lot on the product side, and there is maybe a time now to shift. This being said, I think that clearly it's also an opportunity. There is a tremendous opportunity here, and especially maybe relying on what's happening in the Indian market. The Indian market has its own challenge. It's not an easy one. It's a very competitive one. But this is also one where if one can be successful, and especially combining product and services capability, it certainly gives a solution for many markets abroad, and especially all the emerging markets, what we see, Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America. If the Indian industry is able to be very successful, providing a combination of product and services for the Indian market, will be successful abroad. Last point from my perspective, and you touched it before, talent. As managing a large Indian workforce, I must say that it's a fantastic team, full of energy, full of capability, but at the same time, and this is also again for you here, students, and being a part of this Symbiosis Institute, it's a question that we are still lacking of capability in program management in order to be able to handle complex activities which are high value added activities around transformation, around product. We are lacking solution architecture, where typically when engaging with a customer, looking at the supplier as a partner and not only at providing low cost, is looking at a partner which is able to help him transform along a long journey of transformation and innovation, and we are lacking solution architecture. So those are, I think, challenges that, and consulting is also one point, challenges that will have to be addressed in the near future. But clearly, I believe that the Indian market is also a tremendous opportunity for the Indian IT industry, in an humble opinion. So that's for me.
Prashant, maybe you may want to talk a little bit more about, others have mentioned a little bit on, other geographies where business growth can happen. And are we over-dependent on certain markets? You coming from IBM, you may want to share your thoughts on how this is panning out as you cover your initial thoughts.
Yeah, let me slowly get into it. Okay, so first and foremost, I think thanks a lot for calling me here, and I'm really happy that I was able to make it out here. Couple of things. You have a beautiful campus, no doubt. You have a beautiful campus. Whenever I go out of this building, I'm just amazed at the landscape that's surrounding you. I think that helps bring out the best in all of you. So use these 2 years that you have out here in terms of investing, in terms of your personality development, in terms of the technical eminence, in terms of the industry eminence that is extremely required by all of us in this kind of a market wherein you are almost expected to run faster each day to remain at the same place. Okay. The other good thing, I think, is this is telecom. So I have been in the telecom industry for almost 10 years, about 6 years in the US, and now for the past 4 years in India. And believe me, the experience that I've gained in the past 4 years in India, it is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Probably if I probably may not have gained that kind of experience, even if I would have spent 15 years in a mature market as such. So be proud, first and foremost. Be proud to be this part of institution. I think it's a great environment for all of you. And be proud to be part of the telecom industry. And be proud to be part of the fact that you are part of one of the growth markets, India. Okay. So just so that you know why I'm talking about the growth markets, if you take a look at companies, like any of the companies that my esteemed panelists are from, myself, one of the key things that leaders are nowadays expected to have is an experience of, executing in a growth market. Okay, so this is all given for you. It's the environment that you live in out here, that you breathe in out here. It is actually building your personality that is required as a business leader, as a delivery leader in the future. So I think all of you are at the right place. Be very proud about it. Now, I think my friends, all of them basically touched upon the numbers and touched upon a lot of specifics about the industry per se as such. I would, just try to limit my discussions to, how sustenance, basically. I think that is in the whole, I would say the discussion subject. What really struck me is sustenance, okay? And sustenance is, I think, it is something that is there, that lives in you, and you have, even for me, I have to think about sustenance. Everybody out here needs to think about sustenance. You need to think about sustenance, okay? So, I would, what I thought is that, in terms of the sustenance model that we are basically looking at, what should we look at? And I thought that what better would be than to just relate to you a little bit of strategy that large corporations have had, large corporations that have survived the test of time. One of them being IBM. Last year we completed 100 years. I don't think there are many companies in the world which have probably been able to sustain for 100 years as such. So a lot of, I think, one very important aspect of sustenance is that companies, industries who are basically want to sustain, they need to have a extremely strong strategic intent or vision. If you don't have an extremely strong strategic intent or vision, probably, you may survive for some time, but over a period of time, you fade out. So this is what I've seen, that, companies which have survived the test of time, they have a huge, I would say, strategic vision, a lot of investment in strategic vision that basically makes them survive that long. Secondly, the most important thing that needs to happen is again, this is all strategy, but it can be applied to yourself also as such. Okay, so these are two important aspects. Now, from a strategy perspective, let's go from the strategy and quickly come down to how it basically relates to today's world as such. Strategy converts into what we call as key success factors. A lot of strategic thinking happens. We say that, okay, guys, it looks like cloud is going to be the in thing after 4 years as such. Okay, so that becomes, let us say, your key success factors. And then to adhere to those key success factors, you have to develop core competence. Okay, now, core competence is not something that you can develop in a few days as such. It requires a lot of investment. It requires a lot of experience. Okay, and it requires a lot of management support, etc., to get to those core competencies as such. So, ultimately, at the end of the day, I would say from a sustenance perspective in this industry, we as an industry need to have a vision, the right vision. Okay, that's what I would talk about. If your vision is wrong, means everything goes for a toss. And then you have to understand what are the key success factors to adhere to that particular vision. And then what are the core competencies that are required by you to ensure that those key success factors are met. Okay, so these are the few things, and couple of key success factors or core competencies that are actually required by you in the next 5 years. I think those will be the formative years for all of you out here, I would say, in terms of when you hit the industry as such. So I think few of the key success factors that I wanted to bring out is, data. I think there is a huge data explosion. I know there is a panel discussion on big data, unstructured data analysis, so on and so forth. Okay, what do we have to breed in our industry? We have to breed the ability to convert data into information. Okay, there is a lot of data, but you need to somehow make sense out of that data. You somehow need to make sense out of that data and should be able to translate that data into certain business outcomes as such. So I think that is one area that we basically need to develop core competences. A lot of buzzwords that you see nowadays in terms of big data, etc., they revolve around this particular ability as such. The second ability, I would say, which is very, very important, is the paradigm shift of being able to interact with the front office. What is the front office? The front office, from an industry perspective, is basically the chief marketing officers of the world. If you take the government sector, it's the mayors, it's the commissioners of police, etc. They basically are the front office. In the past, we were interacting a lot with the back office as such. The industry is used to interacting with the CIOs of the world, but we need to develop this ability to be interacting with the front office, basically the chief marketing officers of the world as such. This is a very important, I think, ability that our industry needs to understand and put up, programs, or I would say ways by which we basically achieve this particular goal as such. The third just take a minute, okay. The third very important aspect that we have out here is, the ability to reach out, the ability to reach out to the growth markets. As one of my friends just mentioned, the growth rates in the mature markets are single digit, 3 or 4%, whereas still in the growth markets today, we have a 15% growth, I would say. So our ability to do geographical expansions or something to basically, so that we can cater to the growth markets as such. Okay. Finally, I think just one final point before I hand it over to the next panelist is the opportunity that you have out here in the domestic market. The domestic market opportunity is huge. In my company, we are a $100 billion company, okay, and there is industry eminence by geos, okay. So just guess, which geo is the most eminent in telecom? Any guesses? India. Can you believe it? The whole of IBM looks at India to provide the eminence of telecom knowledge to the rest of IBM. So why? Why has this happened? Because we have experienced this hypergrowth in the last 4 or 5 years out here, and we have gone through this roller coaster ride in the past 4 or 5 years, and we have developed a ton of talent, a ton of experience and exposure that can now be used for the next wave of growth markets like in Africa, Latin America, etc. Okay. With these thoughts, I'll now hand it over to the next panelist in the interest of time.
Thank you, Prashant. And thank you all for giving me the opportunity to be with you today afternoon. Since most of my panelists have already spoken, I'm trying to take an offbeat path. I happen to have an opportunity of being a customer to the Indian IT industry for the last 3 years. So I thought I'll just take a quick 2-minute snapshot of what I see are the challenges there and what I see are the opportunities, and some of them directly relating to you that you can think about when you start graduating from here. By and large, the IT industry here is fed on the labor opportunities globally, and they look at cost arbitrage and value to business. So because it's cost arbitrage and because it's what it costs you in India, so you are bound by a certain set of criteria. So what's happening in the industry is you're focused more on certifications and not more on the quality of what you can deliver there. And then you have challenges of cost. So what happens is most of you in the industry keep moving every 2 years into a different role. So what I mean with that is simply, if I'm looking for a person with 8 years of experience in .NET or Java, I can assure you I won't find one in India. I'll probably get one returning NRI Indian from the US who has got that experience, who's been coding for the last 8 years and continues to do that. That's one thing I want to bring out and just let you think about it. And what happens in this cost arbitrage is because of the challenges there, you are starting to have challenges with your customer sat, the value you're trying to bring to table, and because of the focus on certifications, so at some point you start seeing challenges, right? So what do you think are the solutions here? How do we start showing real value to the business? Because at the end of the day, IT is an enabler. IT is not the end goal here, right? You have to understand a little bit of business, and in your mind, you have to see what it is that you're making, what difference are you making to the business. And that comes from each and every one of you in your roles there, It's not top down, it's bottoms up. So a lot of opportunities there for people to think through what value you can actually bring down there. And since we're talking telecom here, I'm just thinking one opportunity to look at is network management. It would have been great to look at some companies here looking at building products, looking at innovation on the technology side to actually marry people, processes, systems, tools around the world, look at what's happening, which industry, what's happening there. Don't be driven by some other country. Understand what's happening there. Build your products and services. And once you think they are relevant, go to the market and make those services work for the industry. That'll make a big, big difference. And I also think that for the Indian industry, you got to start investing on product in the true sense. Look at the market. And my personal view here is don't look for people who are experienced like us. We got a lot of unlearning to do. People like you, freshers, you're very innovative. You've got a lot of ideas. You're thinking on your feet. I think you people should get on into product development, innovation, apply the enthusiasm and energy you got right now into these fields. You can make a big difference. And I think, as my colleagues have said, there's a big opportunity for us here in India to make that difference globally. Thank you.
Okay. So from the order of discussion that Venki has chosen, we can see that he thinks of the services and products and then thinks to ask the customer last. I also happen to be a customer of the Indian IT industry. Okay, so just kidding, Venki. The question which we were grappling with is the future of Indian IT industry. And very frankly, whatever doubts I might have had before stepping into this room, what I see here, the future of IT industry is sitting right here in front of me. And I feel reassured by what I see, right? Do you feel reassured? Yeah? Okay. So good to see that you yourself have such a faith in the Indian IT industry. One of the models which we looked at for the next step of growth or the next stage of growth was a product-based model instead of a services-based model for the Indian IT industry, which a couple of my panelists also touched upon. So before going to the product-based model, let us see what exactly was it that made the services model succeed in the Indian IT industry. It was a perfect example of private initiative backed by government policy. The Indian IT the IT policy, which was introduced in the mid-80s, that was focused, if we are today in the services business in India and today we are a services superpower, it is not by accident, it is by design. The IT policy in the mid-80s was focused purely on making software and electronics the employment generators for India. So the problem, maybe the vision was not so much to make India the services superpower. The vision was, how do I provide for the employment of the growing population in India? So that is where, India chose to go down the services model rather than become an innovator or a product model, which might not have served at that point of time. But today, when we have achieved a certain level of growth, and definitely that policy has succeeded, because if we see the number of people employed today in the IT industry, IBM themselves having more than 1 lakh plus people employed with them. So what is the next stage of growth that we can think of, and what would be the obstacles that prevent us from going down this path of product model or product-based growth of IT? The first thing which comes to mind is the platform or the facilities or the infrastructure which is required for making a product-based company. Today, if I have to maybe set up a company in, let's say sitting here, if I have to set up a company in Delaware, US, I will find it easier than setting up an industry in India. I can procure servers and install servers in a US data center sitting here, and I would find it much more challenging with much larger lead times in India. So these are some of the challenges that we have to overcome. And definitely, again, just like the services model was a partnership of the private plus public, this will also need private initiative backed by government policy. How? So on the manpower side, yes, definitely Indian IT has very resourceful manpower. They are dedicated, they are career-oriented, and they are focused on self-development. These are excellent attributes which made the services-based model succeed. But for a product-based model, what is needed in addition to this is a certain process-oriented thinking, a certain discipline which goes into building products, and the patience which it takes to develop products, because it has a long gestation period. And I'm sure the youth here will acknowledge and agree with me that India today is a nation in a hurry. We feel that we have to somehow make up for those 40 years of socialism and play catch up with the world. So today the manpower, and as Nagendra also rightly pointed out, while I will find the right number of resources in India, but the right skill, if I have to really look at, in terms of product expertise, in terms of, as Dennis also pointed out, the solution architects, I will still need to rely on maybe somebody sitting on outside shores. Because that expertise simply does not exist in India today. And that is where we need to focus on, that how do we build that focused, dedicated expertise on certain technologies, on certain platforms. Right. The other thing is, we also mentioned, Narasimhan touched upon, the product model being successful by the ODCs which are being set up and the expertise being slowly built up within India itself. I have a slightly different view on this, and I feel that it is, from a policy point of view, we need to encourage the product expertise which sits outside India to come and reside in India first. Right? Building up that expertise would be a very slow and a very cumbersome process. So maybe instead of a ODC, what I would suggest is, can we not have the policies in place to encourage product innovation and development centers where products are built from ground up in India itself? It's not that a product company which finds it cheaper and more resourceful to get its products developed in India, but still keeps the knowledge base and the architects offshore in their home countries. So these are some of the points. And how do we make these policy changes? In order to make the government think tanks work on these policies, we have to also show them what is in it for India. If we have to move from a services-based model, which has worked quite well, and which has served the employment or needs of the country, what is it that the product-based model is going to bring to the country, right? And if the policymakers see the advantage that it will give to India as a country, then definitely, it will be a contribution from Indian IT, not just in sustaining itself, not just in the next stage of growth, but also as a contribution to nation building. Thanks.
Last panelist, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor to be able to address you. I'm going to talk by giving some examples on the key success factors that the eminent panelists have already enumerated. So the first thing is domain expertise. We are pioneers in a new domain, and we acquired this expertise over time. In this domain, another success factor was that how deep inside the enterprise, we deal with the enterprise just now. How deep within the enterprise do you penetrate? Do you penetrate only at the CIO level? Do you only penetrate with your functional person? So we discovered that telecom, because we are from the telecom industry, I know we are in an IT forum, but really we are telecom people. And within telecom, we are in the money, cash part of telecoms. So who owns this within the enterprise? We found an answer. Everybody. Everybody who interacts with telecommunications, which is possibly the third to sixth largest line item as it appears in the balance sheet, is the owner for that part of telecommunications that he interacts. So we went deeper. So we got across to the other stakeholders. So for example, if it was employee entitlement management, HR. If it was accounts payable automation, finance. If it was e-bonding of the inventory set with the carrier inventory set, CIO. If it was rates per minute purchase. So we discovered these processes one at a time. And we solved that by providing a solution. By doing it repeatedly, over and over and over and over and over and over again. For one customer, two customers, three customers, four customers. For tens of thousands of employees. 200, 300, 400 locations all over India. Multiple service providers. Dynamic environment. The only thing that is constant is change. So one step at a time, we built a solution. We've discovered the intricacies, the interlinkages, and put it all together and give a solution which adds money value directly on the balance sheet. So I'd just like to conclude by saying that in a very small way, we understood these key success factors quite by accident. We didn't really think that this was the need of the hour. It just happened sort of because that was the problem, and the problem required a solution. It started off as perhaps a very desi solution. But we made it robust, completely internally. And that is just what I wanted to say about the examples of what key success factors the eminent panelists have said. Thank you.
Thanks to all the panelists for sharing their thoughts. In the interest of time, we'll just throw the floor open for one question from the audience to any of the panelists, please. Just one. Please address it to one of the panelists and keep it short, please.
Good afternoon, panelists. This is Anand from second year marketing. So my question is, I have a different approach. We have all heard of the vertical integration, backward vertical integration. So my question is, can these IT companies which have tremendous cash reserves go for forward vertical integration? They have expertise and the technology which they provide to different companies. So can they go into that industry, explore into that industry which they provide expertise into?
If I were to rephrase the question, I think the question from the audience is, we have heard of the vertical backward integration, but when will and how will the IT companies really move into and drive the forward integration process forward as well, right? So a very good question, in fact. I think if you look at on the vertical integration side, most of the companies have gone into TOS deals, which are complete outsourcing solutions where people not only provide software but hardware and even sign up for UPSs and the network and even potentially even sign up for SLAs for toilets as well, which is the extreme of backward vertical integration. But I think the forward vertical integration was partly touched upon by my colleague here, Narasimhan, who talked about platform-based BPO as an example, where you are not only offering software, but you are also offering services along with it and essentially managing it for your clients and customer. I'll give a couple of examples from Infosys standpoint in terms of where we are doing this, and we have started to do this in a limited way. But I think this is a trend which will increasingly become mainstream. So, for example, if you are, let's say, an income tax assessee, Infosys is right now running the income tax central processing center, where we are not only providing the complete hardware software solution and SLAs for toilets, but also the model is that we are actually paying we are getting paid based on per return that is filed by Infosys, and we charge 54 rupees per return that Infosys would process, as an example. The second example is again one of the platform-based examples would be something that we are doing with Airtel. And probably you would have seen, advertisement on the television called Airtel Money, which is the whole mobile platform where you can transfer payments from, one customer to another customer, or one supplier to another customer, or one supplier to another supplier as well. Now that is the whole platform-based, solution, right? Where again, it is not just Infosys building the mobile payment platform for Airtel, but actually we only get a certain percentage of the share of the business that Airtel wins because of the whole platform which is getting enabled. So those things are becoming more and more mainstream, and I guess this is one strategy on which a lot of companies are betting big, and I think platform-based BPO will become quite mainstream, that you are actually running the services and you are also providing software and you are actually paying the client on a per transaction basis.
Thanks, Malay. So we overshot the time allocated. So let me just quickly summarize. So definitely the view of the distinguished panelists is that Indian IT is not stagnating. There are definitely enough avenues to grow, new technologies, cloud, mobility. There are areas that can foster this growth. We do need new skill sets, product management, program management. We need to have solution architects. We need to have different kinds of skill sets now than what we have traditionally done, but definitely that's something that as an educational institution, something for SITM and others to really ponder about. And definitely sustenance, green is very important. We need to focus on how to build such sustainable organizations. And finally, I do want to reiterate what Prashant said, which is that India is an eminent market, especially for the telecom industry, and we really do honestly believe that this is going to continue for a few more years to come, and wish everyone here a very successful career as they grow in the telecom industry. Thanks. I want to take this opportunity to thank all the distinguished panelists here for taking the time to be here and share their thoughts, and to SITM for giving us this opportunity to be here. Thanks once again.
I would like to thank all our dignitaries for such an enlightening and thought-provoking session. I now invite my colleagues to felicitate our esteemed panelists with a memento as a token of our gratitude and appreciation. We thank our panel members who have joined us and would now request them to kindly take their seat amongst the audience.